Well, I promised everybody that I wouldn't be glazing Indiana, and I hope this isn't considered glazing, but I did want to talk about what happened. I think there's a lesson there for everybody in college football that will be evident because there's something that's happened. Curt Cignetti represents something new in football, and everybody will be duplicating what he's done if they're going to win, at least in the current environment. And there's no reason why you couldn't do what Curt Cignetti did at a university at Georgia, or Alabama, or Auburn, or Purdue, or NC State, or North Carolina. Pick a place. North Carolina would have been a good example of what could have happened when they hired Belichick. Didn't happen that way because Belichick wasn't a Cignetti. Even though they do behave very similar, that's another story. We won't get into that. I want to talk about what really happened there. Now, everybody's going to be, like I said, glazing Indiana, and they deserve it. They won a national title. They have no history. I think they won 3 bowl games their entire existence, and they won that many in a month. Won a national title. They seem to be the face of success. So how can other schools duplicate this Cignetti thing? Well, what he really did was he took what was available and realized that the new system allows you to build a team from scratch, even though it wasn't really built from scratch, that you don't have to have the tradition and all that to succeed. Of course, he didn't just jump up and start doing what Alabama did or do what Kirby Smart did. He just built a football team. He simply built a football team that won. And it looks like he can continue to do so. And that might be the secret template, is how does he construct a team? And how does all this play out? But the reason it worked so well in Indiana probably has something to do with the fact that they did not have the tradition, because those things get in the way. When a Georgia hires a new coach, he has to do the Georgia thing. He has to behave a certain way. They have a tradition. They're not willing to change. Kirby Smart is now, he's gone from the top to somewhere near the top, coming in preseason. They used to be number 1 or number 2. They keep slipping. They have a bad year coming up, which is kind of likely because they're not really going to come close to building a team like Indiana built. Georgia tends to be going the opposite direction, and they'll resist it to the last man. It might be a decade before Georgia ever builds a team the way Curt Cignetti puts a team together. Georgia won't have a good team, but they probably won't have a champion. And we could talk about that, but no one really wants to talk about Georgia right now. The Georgia fans already love everything that's happening, so they're not interested in hearing how Georgia could change their program in an instant. But other schools probably are going to be willing to go look at what Cignetti did and copy, and certainly there'll be copycats. And Cignetti won't have the great success every year, and he might soon be forgotten if he doesn't repeat it. The formula that we're seeing is a little complicated probably, but it's in a way it's not. So what Curt Cignetti did was he was good enough of a coach. I understand he's won everywhere he's been, and that's the key. He's a good coach. He knows what it takes to win a football game. And with the new rules and going to Indiana with their particular situation, he turned it into a champion practically overnight. He never had even that beginning year that he could throw away. Now, schedule had a lot to do with that. Not everything, but a lot. So take the Cignetti method and go look at Vanderbilt. They're doing very similar things, but it's a little tougher league, and it took Vanderbilt a little longer to get success, and the success wasn't as dramatic. The teams like Vanderbilt would have a better shot at duplicating Cignetti's role, or whatever he did, than, say, a Georgia or an Alabama. LSU probably could go that direction. And the formula seems to be you have to be willing to construct a team every year. You take any residue that stays as long as it meets the criteria. But there's no weight to tradition. It's a very methodical, cut and dry approach to football. You get the guys that can do what you need to do. And I guess the key there is knowing what you need to get done on the football field, knowing how you want to play football, and getting the guys that can make that happen. And a lot of that comes down to coaching. You have to have a good coaching staff to pull off what Cignetti did. You can't have a staff that's hanging on with loyalty and moving in different directions and all the hubris that comes with tradition. You'll see other Cignettis come up. The model will be studied, it will be copied, and it doesn't take the things it used to take to win. The tradition doesn't help you at all. In fact, it could hurt you because you get hamstrung by the way you do things. We'll talk about Georgia a little bit too, because, you know, it's our school, it's my team. And if Georgia decided to do the things that Cignetti did, they could have immediate success because Georgia is in position to do what Indiana did. They got resources. You don't have to have Mark Cuban bankrolling the program to succeed. You have to have a little money, but Georgia has enough. So does 50 other schools. Because it does take money, but what it really takes is really good evaluation, and you can't miss. And if you can do that and act on the evaluations, you can duplicate what he did. I think the proof of the pudding might come next year to see if Indiana can keep this going. I got a strange hunch that they might. Well, Mendoza left. Well, that's the whole template. There'll be another one. Look at what Mendoza did in the championship game. His stat lines weren't impressive, but he did what he had to do. And he didn't exceed the parameters of what he was expected to deliver. Nobody had to work outside of their expertise for Indiana to win. Whereas Miami had probably more talent, a better quarterback, technically, but they didn't have a good scheme. And they were to have won that game. They would have had to have had a top performance from Carson Beck, and they got, you know, a pretty good performance. But at the end, it fell short. He could have won the game had he simply played the game plan that he played in the second half from the get-go. But stubbornness, false confidence in a scheme that doesn't produce results on the football field. We're going to talk about that a little bit too. I've said before. NFL is all about results. They study everything, and it's micromanaged, and they know how to win football games. And then everybody's doing it. Only a few can win. But NFL operates on a template of they go with the percentages, almost everything. And when you think that way, you won't be conducting game plans like Mario Cristobal did. You won't be conducting game plans like Georgia did for the last 3 years. You can't go around burning the first half under the premise that produces success in the second half. That's an insane approach to football. Insane. But they defend it and live by it, and Georgia has doubled down on it. Now, it is interesting that Georgia did, at least so far, make a change at offensive line coach. Sorrells is gone. He stepped down. He decided he didn't want to have $1 million a year job. He wanted to just be a low-paid intern or a specialist. Maybe he just wanted insurance. Who knows? Kirby Smart's attitude of I don't fire assistant coaches, never has, and thinks that's a plus. Well, it'd only be a plus if you had sterling examples of coaches. But you don't fire them, you replace them because they get hired by somebody else. That's something that every successful coach has to live with. I'm sure they don't like having to replace coordinators quite as often. But that's just the way the world works. If you're going to be successful, you got to have a good staff. If you have a good staff, they're going to get rated. And if you don't have a good staff, nobody wants them, and you start sinking in the quicksand. Georgia is sinking in the quicksand. They have slowly degraded to the point now that nobody really talks about them, and they shouldn't. They are going to probably win 10 games. They might not. They might not make the playoffs every year. They should, but they might not. And when they get there, they're more than likely to go out in the first round. Why? Because they're not playing championship ball. And it's no knock on the players. It's a knock on the scheme. Georgia threw away the perfect scheme. When they had Todd Monken, they had the perfect scheme. That scheme would work even if you had less talent. It would certainly work if you had the talent that we presented the last 3 years. Georgia's had plenty of talent. But when you keep not using it, it's not going to keep continuing to show up. Noah Thomas, go look at his numbers. It's incredible the amount of touches he had at Georgia this past year compared to what he had at Texas A&M the year before. Like, why did you even go out and get Noah Thomas? You had no intention of using him. Your choice of quarterbacks negated what Thomas could do because your guy can't throw to him. But you praise this guy, double down on him, and you'll probably have him as your starter next year. You probably won't entertain any serious competition. Yeah, you did make a replacement on your offensive line coach, but your offensive coordinator, you haven't made a decision on that, and you probably should, but you probably won't, because Bobo ain't going nowhere till you kick him out the door. Bobo's going to hang around as long as you let him. Mark Richt let him hang around for almost 7 years, and it cost him his legacy. He's no longer looked at in history as a great coach. He's looked at as a failure. It's hard to remember the good Mark Richt years because the last 7 were not good at all. Yeah, you can point to a few SEC championship games, some 10-win seasons. Didn't get anything out of it. We only had a 2-team playoff some of those years, 4-team later. Georgia was never in that mix. We'd always lose a game to keep us out. The SEC championship game was what kept Georgia out of the playoffs with Mark Richt. He could never win it. After 2007, he stayed around to 2015. He didn't win an SEC. Didn't win the East after 2012. Starts to go downhill, but Georgia fans, all traditional schools, tend to circle the wagons and defend the status quo, even though they're obviously up to their waist in quicksand.